Have you ever awakened at 5 in the morning for no reason at all? No alarm, no noise. You simply opened your eyes, looked at the clock, and there it was. 05:55. And you stayed for a few seconds with that number in your head, not quite understanding what you felt, but feeling something. Has this happened to you once, twice, several times? If so, what I'm going to reveal to you today will completely change the way you understand these moments. Because it is not insomnia. It is not a coincidence. It is not your body being unregulated. It is a calling. And it has a name, a purpose, and a very specific spiritual mechanics that the oldest traditions in the world recognize and that modern neuroscience has begun to confirm now. The time of 05:55 is what various traditions call the golden window. The moment immediately before the sun rises, when the veil between the spiritual field and the material field is at its thinnest point. It is the moment when certain frequencies of prosperity, healing, and revelation can be accessed by those who are awake and in a state of receptivity. Today I am going to teach you what to do at this time. But first I need you to understand why you specifically were awakened during it. Because not everyone is called like this, and whoever is called for a reason. Stay until the end, because in the middle part of this video, I will reveal to you the specific code of 05:55 and what it activates when you use it consciously. This will change your morning, and your morning will change your life. First, let me give you context, because what I'm about to show you is not superstition, it is not magical thinking, it is a convergence between millennia of spiritual knowledge and decades of scientific research on the functioning of the human brain. Are you familiar with the concept of the circadian rhythm? It is the internal biological cycle of your body that regulates sleep, wakefulness, temperature, hormones, and practically all physiological processes in a cycle of approximately 24 hours. This rhythm is real, it is measurable, and it is deeply influenced by sunlight. But what most do not know is that the moments of transition within this rhythm, the point of exit from deep sleep and entry into awakening, are neurologically the most powerful of the day for information processing, creativity, and the reception of insights. In scientific terms, this state is called hypnopompic. It is the state between sleep and total wakefulness, where brain waves are in a theta frequency, between 4 and 8 Hz. In this frequency, the brain is simultaneously relaxed and receptive. Critical thinking and the filter of the ego are not yet fully active, and communication between the right and left hemispheres of the brain is at its peak. In other words, the moment you awaken at 05:55 spontaneously is neurologically the moment when your brain is most open, most receptive, most capable of capturing patterns, connections, and signals that the state of full wakefulness normally filters out. Now place this within the spiritual context. Various traditions around the world identified this moment without having modern scientific nomenclature. In the Islamic tradition, the Fajr prayer, which is the first of the 5 daily prayers, happens exactly at this time, before sunrise. Tradition teaches that this is the most blessed prayer of the day, the one that opens the field for what comes next. In the Christian tradition, contemplative monasteries have the practice of Lauds, the dawn prayer, which has existed for more than 15 centuries, based on the perception that the moment before sunrise is especially propitious for communion with the divine. In Taoism and Tibetan Buddhism, the deepest meditation practices are prescribed specifically for the hours before dawn. In the Jewish tradition, the time of Alot HaShachar, which marks the first glow before the sun appears, is considered the moment of greatest spiritual openness of the day. Cultures that never had contact with each other reach the same conclusion. The moment before sunrise is a portal, and the number 05:55 within this portal is an additional layer of meaning. Let's talk about the numerology of 555. Not the shallow and superficial numerology you find in social media posts, the deep numerology, which stems from the understanding that numbers are frequency structures that reality uses to organize itself. The number 5 in almost all numerological traditions represents change, movement, expansion, freedom, and transformation. 5 is the number of the turning point, the number of when something that was stationary begins to move. When you have 3 5s together, you have a triad of activation, a sequence that in the vibrational field functions as an accelerator. In Pythagorean numerology, which is the basis of much of the Western system, 5 by 5 reduces to 15, which in turn reduces to 6. 6 is the number of harmony, abundance, family, home, and material sustenance in balance with the spiritual. It is no coincidence that the code of prosperity is embedded within the sequence of transformation, because there is no real prosperity without inner transformation first. In the traditions of angels, widely spread in Brazilian popular Catholicism and in new spirituality movements, 555 is frequently associated with the message from spiritual guides that significant changes are about to happen, that the field is reorganizing itself, that what you asked for, consciously or unconsciously, is in the process of materializing. And when this code appears at the time of 0555, it is encapsulated within the golden window. It is like a sacred envelope being delivered at the moment when the door is most open. But the miracle of 0555 does not operate on its own. It is a window, and like every window, it only serves those who use it. Those who are sleeping heavily at this time, which is the majority, lose access. Those who wake up and stay on their cell phones on social media, which is what most do when they wake up early, waste the field. Those who wake up and stay ruminating on worries and anxieties convert the golden window into a window of amplification of chaos. One must know what to do in this moment, and that is exactly what comes now. If this content is making sense to you, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell now. This type of content goes far beyond what you normally find about spirituality and prosperity, and it will continue to arrive every week. Before I teach you the practical code of 0555, I need to tell you something about the state in which most people wake up. Because if you don't understand this, you will try to apply the code and you will get frustrated without understanding why it didn't work. Most people in Brazil wake up with their minds already in survival mode. Before putting their feet on the ground, they are already thinking about the bills to pay, the difficult meeting at work, the child who has a problem at school, the relationship that is not well. The mind goes directly to the problems, and this is not moral weakness, it is biology. The brain has a mechanism called negativity bias. This means that, for evolutionary survival reasons, the human brain is programmed to identify threats before identifying opportunities. Our ancestors, who did not pay attention to dangers, died before reproducing. So we are left with this neurological legacy of waking up looking for what can go wrong. The problem is that this mechanism was developed for a world of predators and physical scarcity, and it operates today in a world where most dangers are not physical, but emotional and psychological, and it amplifies everything it touches. So when you wake up at 0555 and immediately start thinking about problems, you are taking the most powerful window of the day and injecting into it the exact pattern you want to transform. You are amplifying in the golden window that which you want to be free from. The rupture with this pattern begins before leaving the bed, and it is what the 0555 code teaches you to do. Now yes, the code. Pay attention, and if you can, write this down. The 0555 code has 5 elements, and each element corresponds to one of the 5s of the sacred number. It is not a coincidence, it is structure. The first element is intentional silence. The first 5 minutes after you wake up at this time belong to silence. Not the passive silence of someone who is still sleepy, the active silence of someone who is choosing to be present. Do not pick up the cell phone, do not speak, do not turn anything on. Stay lying down or sit on the edge of the bed and simply perceive. Perceive your breathing, perceive the environment around you, perceive how your body is. This active silence is what opens the channel of reception. It is what signals to the spiritual field that you are awake and available. Many people report that it is exactly in these 5 minutes that insights, images, words, or sensations arrive that carry important information for their lives. The second element is directed gratitude, not the generic gratitude of "I am thankful for another day," which is valid but not very powerful. Directed gratitude is specific. It is you identifying in that moment 3 concrete things for which you are grateful, not necessarily big things. It could be the health of a child. It could be a conversation you had the previous week that touched you. It could be the bed you are lying in. The neuroscience of gratitude, which is a robust field of research led by scholars like Robert Emmons of the University of California, has demonstrated that the consistent practice of specific gratitude literally alters brain chemistry, increasing the release of dopamine and serotonin and reducing levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. In the spiritual field, gratitude functions as a frequency tuner. You give thanks for what you have and tune the field to the frequency of receiving more. The third element is the declaration of intention. This is the moment when you, with your mind still in a theta state and the channel open, make a verbal or mental declaration of what you are building, not a wish list, a declaration of who you are choosing to be and what you are choosing to create. There is a huge difference between asking and declaring. He who asks is in a position of lack. He who declares is in a position of co-creation. The biblical tradition is full of declarations, not passive requests. The Psalms are declarations. The prophecies are declarations. The affirmation, I am, which appears repeatedly in the Bible as the very name of God, is the most powerful linguistic structure of declaration that exists. When you say, I am prosperous, I am healthy, I am an instrument of transformation, you are activating this structure in your own field. The fourth element is the 30-second vision. After the declaration, you close your eyes and spend 30 seconds clearly seeing in your mind a specific scene of where you are going. Not a vague desire. A concrete scene. You in the environment you want to occupy. You in the situation you are building. You feeling what it is like to have arrived there. Neuroscience calls this creative visualization and has demonstrated that the brain does not perfectly distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined experience. The same neural circuits are activated. This means that every time you visualize with clarity and emotion, you are literally training your brain to recognize and act toward the reality you want to create. And the fifth element is the sacred movement. Before starting any other activity, you make a physical gesture of openness. It can be a simple stretch with arms open to the sides and head lifted upward. It can be a short walk barefoot in the yard or on the porch feeling the ground under your feet. It can be washing your face with cold water and while doing so, saying internally, I am ready. Physical movement is what anchors in the body everything that was done in the previous elements, because the body is the temple, and what stays only in the mind eventually dissipates. What passes through the body installs itself. These 5 elements take between 10 and 15 minutes in total, and they radically transform the quality of your day. Not by magic, by alignment. Because when you start your day in the right state, with the field open, the intention clear, and the body activated, you process challenges differently. You make decisions differently, you relate differently. And after a few weeks of consistent practice, you begin to see the external results. The opportunities that arrive, the synchronicities that multiply, the doors that open in ways that the rational mind cannot completely explain. Like this video now. Not just because it helps the channel, but because it is a way for you to signal to yourself that this content matters and that you will act upon it. Now I need to tell you about what prevents most people from accessing this window, and the answer will surprise you. It is not laziness. It is not lack of discipline. It is not even lack of faith. It is internal noise. There is research conducted by the University of Michigan that identified that the average adult has between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day, and that approximately 80% of these thoughts are repetitive, and that 60 to 70% of repetitive thoughts are negative. This means that most of what passes through your mind every day is a slightly modified version of the same set of worries, fears, resentments, and doubts that passed yesterday, and the day before, and last month. This internal noise is what makes access to the 0555 window impossible, because the window requires internal silence, not the absence of thoughts, which is something only very advanced meditators achieve, but a state of observing thoughts without being dragged away by them. And here is the most important data of everything you will hear today. The quality of the first 20 minutes of your day determines the neurological and energetic quality of the following 12 hours. It is not an exaggeration. It is physiology. Cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is naturally elevated right after awakening, in a process called the cortisol awakening response. This is normal and healthy, but what you do with it makes all the difference. If you feed this cortisol peak with social media stimulation, bad news, worries, and anxiety, you are training your nervous system to operate in threat mode all day. If you cross this peak with the practices I showed you, you use this natural hormonal peak as fuel for focus, clarity, and intentional action. It is the same energy. The result depends completely on what you do with it in that window of time. Let me tell you about a specific reality that many people over 35 years old live in Brazil. A reality that makes access to this type of practice both more difficult and more urgent. You have commitments, many. Children who need to be taken to school, work that starts early, a house to take care of, bills to pay, a family to support. And in the middle of all this, the idea of waking up earlier to do spiritual practices seems like a luxury you cannot afford. I understand this feeling, but I need to tell you something with all possible clarity. You do not have the time not to do this. Let me explain. When you start the day without alignment, you spend energy throughout the day reacting to what appears. Each decision costs more. Each conflict drains more. Each challenge seems bigger than it is. You work more but produce less because your nervous system is in reactive mode. When you start the day with the 15 minutes of the 0555 code, you do not lose 15 minutes. You gain hours of quality because you operate from a different state, more centered, clearer, more resilient. The same situations that previously wore you down for hours pass through you with much less energetic cost. This is what the most productive, most prosperous, and most spiritually aligned people in the world do. Not because they have more time, but because they understood that the quality of the beginning determines the quality of the whole. And the time of 0555 is not arbitrary. It is the perfect balance point between the necessary rest of the night and the beginning of the day's movement. It is the moment when nature is waking up, when the birds begin to sing, when the first glow has not yet arrived, but the darkness is already yielding. There is a perfect metaphor in this for human life, the moment between what was and what will be. The threshold. And you can choose to be at this threshold consciously, or let it pass while you are with your eyes glued to the cell phone. I want to bring you now real stories of how this practice transformed the lives of ordinary people within the Brazilian reality. Think of a 42-year-old woman, a mother of two, who works as a hairdresser in São Paulo. She started waking up at 0555 spontaneously about a year ago. At first, she was irritated because she needed rest, but after reading about the subject, she decided to use that time. She applied the 5 elements for 30 consecutive days. She says that on the 22nd day, during the moment of vision, she had absolute clarity about a business she had wanted to set up for years and about the first step to start. 3 months later, she had formalized her micro-enterprise and doubled her income. Think of a 51-year-old man, a public servant in Belo Horizonte, who lived with chronic insomnia and woke up several times during the night. When he started applying the 0555 code, he reports that the quality of his sleep as a whole improved. The practice of intentional silence and gratitude before sleeping and upon awakening changed the activation pattern of his autonomic nervous system. In 4 weeks, he was sleeping better than he had slept in 10 years. Think of a 60-year-old teacher from the interior of the Northeast who lost her husband 2 years earlier and was in a process of deep grief, feeling that life had lost its meaning. When she started the practice, the element that transformed her most was the declaration of intention. For the first time in years, she heard herself say out loud who she still wanted to be, and this simple act of hearing herself declare a possible future reignited something she thought had been extinguished forever. These stories are not extraordinary because they have miraculous elements. They are extraordinary because they are absolutely possible for anyone who decides to consciously use the window that is available every morning. The question is not whether it works. The question is, will you do it? Write one word in the comments now, just one. The word that represents what you most want to attract into your life at this moment. It can be prosperity, health, love, peace, clarity, courage. Just one word. Write it. Because the act of naming in public what you desire is in itself an act of declaration. And declarations have weight in the field. I need to address a question that will arise in the minds of those watching me from within a more conservative religious tradition. Because in Brazil, where most people have some relationship with Christianity, this question is inevitable. Is this compatible with the Christian faith? Yes, completely. The Bible is full of references to the time before dawn as the moment of encounter with God. David wrote in Psalm 5 that early in the morning he lifted his voice to God and waited with expectation. In Mark chapter 1 verse 35, it is written that Jesus rose early in the morning, well before dawn, went to a deserted place, and prayed. Paul wrote to the Ephesians about waking up from spiritual sleep, explicitly using the metaphor of the light that arrives before dawn as a symbol of awakening to full life in Christ. The practice of awakening before the sun and dedicating that moment to the encounter with the sacred is not an invention of new spirituality. It is one of the oldest and most documented practices within the Christian tradition. The monasteries that preserved knowledge for centuries organized their entire lives around this principle. What I am teaching here does not conflict with any faith. The O555 code is a practical structure. You apply it within your own tradition. Silence can be prayer. Gratitude can be praise. The declaration can be a biblical promise. The vision can be the image of the future that God placed in your heart. The sacred movement can be kneeling. The structure is universal. The content is yours and God's. We have reached the final part, and I want to leave you with a perspective that goes beyond practices and techniques. There is a deeper reason for you to have reached this video now. For you to have awakened at those 5:55 without knowing why. For you to have gone through everything you have gone through until now and still be seeking something more. That reason is called purpose. People who are called, who are awakened in a non-linear way, who have a constant feeling that there is something greater waiting for them. These people did not arrive at this condition by accident. They arrived because they have a mission that goes beyond daily survival. A specific contribution to give that only they can give, with the unique combination of experiences, pains, gifts, and perspectives they developed throughout life. And the miracle of O555 is ultimately the invitation for this person to present themselves, the invitation for you to stop living on reactive autopilot and start living in intentional alignment, for you to stop being defined by what happened and start being defined by what you choose to create. The golden window is not a productivity trick. It is a portal of reconnection with who you came to be, and it is available tomorrow morning, and the day after tomorrow, and every day, as long as the sun continues to rise. The question is, will you be awake when it opens? If you have reached this point in this video, I truly thank you, because it means you are taking the process of transforming your life seriously, and that is the kind of commitment that makes a difference. The next step is simple. Tomorrow when you wake up, before anything else, apply the first of the 5 elements, just the first one, the intentional silence of 5 minutes. You don't need to do everything at once. Start with 1, and tell me in the comments how it was. I am here, I read every message. If this video reached you and brought you something of value, share it. Send it to that person who is also seeking a fuller, more prosperous life, more aligned with what they came to be. The content you share might be exactly what will wake up someone who is waiting for a sign. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because the next videos will deepen each of the 5 elements of the code. We will go into each practice with more detail, with specific exercises, and with stories of transformation that will show you with concreteness what is possible for those who decide to use the window that heaven offers every day before the sun rises. Until the next video. And remember, the miracle does not happen to you, it happens through you. When you awaken, heaven opens. Do not miss this window tomorrow.